Thank you, Ben, and good afternoon, everyone. And it's an absolute pleasure to be here again at a Farmer Riders function to wind out the end of the year, but also to celebrate our Farmer of the Year program, which is aptly supported by the Department of Prime Industries, New South Wales Farmers, and also the Land. Maybe acknowledge a few people that haven't already been acknowledged. Can I start with Derek Scowen and also Matt Brand from New South Wales Farmers, and I see a number of the team here today. Obviously, Scott Hansen, and I see a number of DPI staff around the room, including Brett Fifield, Deputy Director General, and also Dr. Jeff Allen, Tim Demesta and Tim Ferraro and team here from Local Land Services. Also the judges of the Farmer of the Year contest. I mentioned Brett Fifield from the Department of Prime Industries, Derek Scowen, Sally White from Fairfax Media, and also Tony Williams from Safe Work New South Wales. It's also good to see Ed Fagan. It seems that any time there's a function now with food and grog, Ed pops up. The 2015 Farmer of the Year. I don't know if there's a time limit on these invites, but I'm sure we'll see him next year. Can I also, we have had Nick, Jock, Peter, and also Casey that have been acknowledged, and we'll hear a little bit more about their stories as we go through the day. But can I also acknowledge their partners that are here today as well? Obviously, the success of our Farmers of the Year, I'm sure wouldn't be possible without the support of their families and the networks around them. So can I acknowledge all of their partners that are here as well today. Ladies and gentlemen, it's thank God it's getting close to the end of the year. It's been a pretty full-on year from where we stand, but we're finishing the year on what I think is an absolute high. And to be here today to celebrate the Farmer of the Year is certainly a good way to celebrate what has been a pretty sensational year for the prime industry sector. One thing that stands out though when you hear the stories of our finalists is the diversity of backgrounds and enterprises that we're celebrating here today, and I'm sure the judges would have found that difficult to pick a winner from, but one thing that really stands out for me is the diversity. And it's that diversity that I think has led to some pretty significant numbers that we're celebrating in the prime industry sector, both here in New South Wales, but also right across the nation as we stand here at this present point in time. Some of you may have seen that earlier today Moody's have reaffirmed the AAA credit rating for the nation, but in doing so, some of the commentary around confirming that AAA credit rating has been the contribution of New South Wales, but also the diversity of the New South Wales economy. And that's something that we are certainly celebrating. Now, there are a number of factors that have led to that, but we released some numbers yesterday, and as you get to go today, you'll also be able to take with you a document that the department has put out for the first time, which is the DPI 2016 Performance Data and Insights Report. And that has shown some pretty amazing numbers of how the sector has performed here in New South Wales. Many of you will know that we worked with industry to set out the Agriculture Industry Action Plan, and we also set some pretty key targets of increasing the value of prime industries by 30% by 2020. The report and the numbers that you will see as you leave today highlight that in the last 2 years we've seen the sector here in New South Wales grow by 17%. That's a pretty amazing result. That's about $2.1 billion, and we now, when I stand up to talk about prime industries in New South Wales now, I'll be talking about a $13.9 billion industry. Now, some of that has been obviously off the back of strong commodity prices and some very good seasonal conditions, and I'm not naive enough, although it's tempting to stand up and say because of my role as Minister and as the New South Wales Government, we've had direct impact on those numbers. But we need to be able to have policy settings so that when seasonal conditions are good, that we can capitalise on it. We need to also have confidence in the sector for industry to be able to take up advances in technology or research and development. And that's the role that this government has been able to play through our experts at DPI so that we can make sure that we are providing all of the conditions available through our research and development to be able to allow the sector to capitalise on those conditions. We also have other agencies like Local Land Services that are at the forefront of providing some of that agricultural extension advice, and also there to look after things like emergency management and biosecurity, which have been very important factors when we've seen some of the adverse seasonal conditions like flooding across New South Wales over recent months. So as a government, we're making sure that we continue to work with industry to be able to provide confidence and be able to lead the way in things like research and development. And what you'll see early next year, hopefully, is some key announcements around what we have in store for the future of the sector, particularly in that research and development space. So certainly that's going to be a focus of where we move to in 2017. One thing we need to make sure that we continue to do, though, is do things like research and development and advances in technology that are linked in with what industry wants. It's not just a case of research for research's sake. It's tapping in and making sure that we're value-adding to the private sector and the enterprises that we see right across New South Wales. One of the ways that we do that is we make sure that we regularly make contact with our stakeholders and I guess take the pulse of what they're thinking, what their views on how we are performing, particularly with our agencies like DPI. And one thing that we've been able to again report is a significant increase on how we're perceived by our stakeholders. DPI has contacted roughly 50 of our major stakeholders and had that conversation with them. How do they see the role of government agencies? How are we performing? And around 84% of those stakeholders that have been interviewed to date, and I acknowledge that some haven't yet, are emotionally satisfied with the interactions with DPI, which is up from 74.5% last year. So that's a good sign that we're directing our resources into the right areas. We've also then asked the industry, what are your priorities as we move forward into 2017? And they've listed things like trade and being internationally competitive, biosecurity, which again, when I get up and talk a lot about our sector, I continually prosecute that biosecurity and food safety are our biggest competitive advantages that we have here in New South Wales and the things that we should be promoting and protecting. Obviously water, I'll probably have a little bit to say about water towards the end of my contribution today because it has been a pretty hot topic around the country. Obviously funding, technology, innovation, and also emerging technologies, but also natural resource management and biodiversity. So that's what is important to the sector, and that's, again, what we use to then inform what we see as priorities as we move into 2017. We also have used those priorities and that feedback to structure what we've done this year. And I'm going to take a very quick opportunity to round out some of the things that we've been able to achieve in 2016, because when we look at what we've been able to do in primary industries, it has been a busy year. Personally, made 52 visits to different parts of the state. We keep track of that in my office. We put a sticker on wherever we go so that we make sure that we're going to areas that we haven't been before and seeing things that we haven't seen before. Probably too many of those trips have involved talking about sharks and standing on the beach. It was certainly something that when I was made Minister for Prime Ministries, I didn't think that my boots would be full of sand as much as they have been. But nevertheless, I acknowledge Dr. Allen and his team for the work that they've done in a difficult space. So we've been from Broken Hill to Bermagui, Nyngan to Tumut, Orange to Tamworth, and Armidale and beyond. And hopefully next year we'll be able to add other centres to that list as we move around the state. We've been able to get a number of significant reforms landed in 2016, and I think probably the headline of that has been the changes to the biodiversity laws that we got through the Parliament in the last few days of this year's sitting. That is something that's been talked about for decades. It's something that was difficult, it was emotionally charged, it was something that people had talked a big game about before and unfortunately weren't able to deliver. But that's something that I'm confident, as we go through the implementation stage next year, will show a real difference to productivity, particularly in our regional communities, and include our primary producers as part of the solution, rather than just being perceived and I think incorrectly labelled as part of the problem. It's a new way of looking at this issue. It's something that is probably in the middle of the range of when you had views on what we should do this. I think it was a well-balanced approach that hopefully will stand the test of time and hopefully stand the test of future governments. In the dying weeks of the Parliament this year, we also made some reforms to the way that Crown land is managed in New South Wales, and that will free up and provide some greater flexibility to our producers, particularly in the western leased area of New South Wales, to be able to look at issues like freeholding country, which is something, again, that has been quite passionate for some people across the state.